Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, the Mighty Bjorn, and today I have for you a PvE Operation Hardcore on Dire Wolf. We have Grim Mike with his AMX-13 DACA, more DACA, Kangaroo with his Leopard 1A5, myself in the M60A3 Patton, Mighty Mouse with his M60A3 Patton, and the Red Queen with her T64 AV Hunter. Give you a quick look over of the M60 Patton here.
Load heat.
And I'm going to load up a heat round in this powerful 105mm gun. Alright. Now we're going to talk about the history of the M60. I'm actually going to begin with the M60 itself. At first glance, the M60 looks very much like the M48 Patton. This is because the older M48s were too expensive and in too many ways difficult to upgrade. So a new tank was designed and the M60 was born. It'd be the first main battle tank to enter service with the United States. For nearly 30 years, it would be the workhorse for the U.S. Army, the United States Marine Corps, and other allied nations. More than 15,000 M60s would be built over a large period of time. And many M60s would see service until 1997, when it would finally be replaced by the M1. That's completely replaced. Understand the replacement process actually began in the early 80s with the adoption of the M1. Although when it entered service in 1959 as a first generation main battle tank, the M60 would be modernized to a second generation main battle tank. In fact, many packages have been tested and produced to make this aging tank into a third generation main battle tank, i.e. M60 Phoenix, there's the M60 L4 Destroyer, etc., etc. As of 2015, Egypt is the largest operator with 1,716 M60A3s. Turkey has 866 M60A3s, and Saudi Arabia has 650 M60s. The M60 has a Continental AVDS 1790-2 V12 twin-turbo diesel engine producing 750 horsepower. Current operators would include Afghanistan, Bosnia, Brazil, Egypt, Iran, Israel, Jordan, Morocco, Spain, Sudan, Taiwan, Turkey, and the United States in limited use. We use them mostly for target tanks now. Target practice, if you will. That only names a few of its current operators. The M60 would see just about every war since its introduction in 1959. These would include actions would include the Yom Kippur War, the invasion of Grenada, the Persian Gulf War. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this did see service along the Abrams in the Persian Gulf War, mostly with the Marine Corps. The Iraq-Iran War, the Lebanese Civil War, the 1982 Lebanon War, and the Syrian Civil War. That only actually highlights a few of the wars and actions this is actually seen. I'm actually very surprised, though, when I was going through the list of actions and war it was in, I did not see Vietnam on the list. This, however, would have been in service during Vietnam. But then, again, so was the M48 Patton. Now, a couple things I'm going to point out, or more or less a couple facts. If you look at the tier... hold on, I'm trying to think of the tier. Sorry, folks. if you look at the Tier 3 M60 and you look at the Tier 2 M48A3, you will notice two very similar tanks. Originally, and the part I'm going to highlight is actually the turret and the hull and suspension. They both share a very similar torsion bar suspension. In fact, they are both practically the same design suspension. They just beefed it up, and I believe they added an extra road wheel to the M60. Another thing to point out is generally the shape of the hull is very similar, but with the M48, you have kind of a rounded upper and lower glacis plate, kind of making what I call a beak shape. Beak. Say that again, make sure it was very clear. Where the M60 would actually have a flat angled lower and upper glacis plate coming together. That is one of the main differences, how you can tell between an original M60 and an M48 Patton. The other thing to point out though, and this is why the two tanks get very confused, especially when looking at photographs, the turret of both vehicles is actually a rounded dome turret, very similar to the mushroom turret that the Soviets used, but not quite the same. Hence is actually why this tank got the name Patton. Originally, this was actually gun motor carriage, or a tracked gun motor carriage. Shit, I don't remember. It was a very long, very confusing name. We'll leave it at that. And then its name, it would be M60. It actually wasn't a named tank. Unlike Abrams, when it came out, it was coined as Abrams. Originally, it had no name, and actually it was the troops who served on the M60s, the early M60s, who coined the name Patton, because it looked very reminiscent of the old M48s. And even if you look at the turret of the M60A1 and the M60A3, you will see it's very comparable to even a per se enlarged turret from the M47 Pattons. But there's also quite a few differences there between the two turrets. Mostly what I'm pointing out is it's got the flat angled sides, it comes sort of to a rounded point, and then it's got a large bustle in the rear of the turret. Now, as you can see here, it has the explosive armor package. This is actually the explosive armor package that would have been used on the American M60s during Desert Storm. And there is actually many other versions of the M60 out there, or modifications. Sabra is an M60. The Magok series, the Magok 6 and the Magok 7 are both M60 tanks.
We've repelled a major attack today with no civilian casualties.
But anyway, I kind of went long here. I'm going to talk more about the tank here quickly in Armored Warfare. There's not a whole lot to cover in Armored Warfare. It is a Tier 5 main battle tank, obviously, as you can see here. It is actually a semi-decent tank. It is not the most mobile. It is not the best armored. It is not the most well-gunned. But it's kind of the average everywhere, making it to me, a very middle-of-the-road tank. I did find this tank, when I do get a chance to play in PvP, I actually do find this tank actually to be fairly good, especially if I can keep the tank hull down, which is the main thing to keep in mind about this tank. Keep the hull down, especially try to avoid exposing the turret ring too much, because the turret ring can be penetrated, especially by ATGMs. Otherwise, between its explosive reactive armor and its armor shaping and thickness, it's actually quite effective against per se heat rounds. Pretty much it'll stop even a Weasel's toe from the front, toe missile. Swain fires get a little iffy, on that one. But anyway, folks, so here we go. I did 9,452 damage. I spotted one enemy vehicle and destroyed 7. I kind of played this a little cautious and stayed back from the front line, but stay ahead of my teammate in the Leopard and the AMX-13 DACA. But other than that, I tried to keep with the other M60 and kind of let the T64AV, which is a much better armored tier 5, ahead of me, and just support with my fast reloading 105 millimeter gun. But there you go. I was top damage overall. However, I would not be top in spotting, unfortunately. So I did not get the blue star this match. But all in all, it was still a very decent match for the M60A3. Anyway, folks, hopefully you enjoyed the replay. Sorry I went a little long. Thank you very much for watching. But here you go, the last of the Patton tanks. And yeah, hopefully I will see you for the next video.